councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Chair and Vice Chair of Harlow Council.
Good evening, councillors. Before we sit down, can we please have a minute's silence for Sir David Holmes, who tragically killed a few weeks ago in South England. Item 1, apologies for absence. This councillor
We've got 3 apologies for absence, Chair. Councillors Shelley Johnson, Andrew Johnson and Mick Churchill.
Item 2, sorry, councillor Wilkinson.
We have apologies for Councillor Strachan.
Right, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any? No? Right. Item 3, minutes of the previous council meeting held on the 16th of September. Any issues regarding those? This councillor Williams.
We noticed that Councillor John Steer was missing from the attendance list. It might be reflected.
Other okay to be signed, are they? Agreed. Right, item 4, communications from the Chair. I'm sorry, it's a little bit long this one. I've been to the Essex Chairman's reception. I've visited the Phoenix Resource Centre. I visited Water Lane Primary School for the unveiling of their new play area. They had a reception at Chelmsford for all the winners of the Queen's Award for Voluntary Services, which PAH were awarded a voluntary service. Went to London for the Costermonger service. Been to the Broxton Cheese and Wine Party. I opened the Black History Month. I've been to Great Dunmo's last night of the proms. I've been to Broxton Civic Service. I visited the Leisure Zone to thank the nurses and volunteers for all their help over the COVID. I went to the High Sheriff's Justice Service, and then we had the visit from the High Sheriff. And Joel and myself visited Leon Street to pay our respects for Sir David Holmes and writing the condolence book and lay a wreath. I was at the Great Britain Clean-Up Awards and the Mayor of Chelmsford Civic Lunch. Right. Item 5, petitions from the public. There are none. Questions from the public, there are 6. Mr. Taylor. Do you wish to read your question, or do you want to have it read?
I'll read it then, please. Yeah, thank you. Good evening. During the recent election campaign, the Conservative Party pledged to build many council homes in Harlow. The previous administration record on this subject can best be described as abysmal. Sites such as Elm Hatch and the former Lister House sites have lain derelict for years, and residents living in homes which will need to be demolished have been left in limbo. A document giving a timeline for development was produced by the council in 2019, and another appeared in the local plan in December 2020. Will you please advise me what progress is being made to develop the following sites, all of which form the first 5-year supply of homes in the local plan? That's the former Lister House site and adjacent area, Riggins Lane, Pollard Hatch, Elm Hatch and Fisher's Hatch. And that's to Councillor
Councillor
Carter.
Carter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Mr. Taylor. The list to which you refer, appearing in the Harlow Development Plan adopted in December 2020, is of sites identified for development over the plan period and are not specific to the council. This information is available to developers and the council that actively promotes them. For details of the council's pipeline of potential new houses, I refer you to the quarterly capital expenditure performance reports presented to Cabinet. The performance of the previous administration in building new council houses has been dire since the draft final programme some 7 years ago. The quarterly performance report has prompted many questions and comments from us in opposition. We regularly challenge the previous administration over the absence of activity and interest in pursuing one of their key priorities, building more council houses. We are undertaking a rigorous and comprehensive review of the sites in the pipeline to ensure we achieve the homes that are needed and are value for money. We're also working with our subsidiary HTS to build properties in the pipeline through their emerging business plan, something else the previous administration failed to do. The action we are taking now will result in this new administration building many more new council properties. We are aiming for hundreds, and I look forward to making more announcements on details of these schemes in due course.
Mr. Taylor, have you a supplementary question?
I do, yes, yeah. Well, I have to say that I think along with residents I will be very surprised, or I've been very surprised to see the contents of the first sentence, which says that the information is available to developers and the council actively promotes them. Is Councillor Castle aware that 2 of these sites at Riggins Lane and Pollard Hatch are in fact subject to community right to bid? And what that would mean if a developer was to approach the council?
Thank you. The short answer is they may well be subject to neighbourhood ownership, but they haven't actually been completed yet. It may be a question of who gets there first.
Your second question, Mr.
Well, I'd just like to say I think the Councillor Carter has got that wrong in terms of what a community right to bid means. The council do have these sites listed on their website. So I think you need to check that information. Secondly, then to Councillor Dan Swords, over £250,000 was spent on refurbishing Market Square just 3 years ago. Like me, many residents have been concerned to see that about a third of this surface in the square has been dug up and replaced with another surface. This work has been going on for about 7 months, during which time the whole area looks like a building site. I understand that Essex County Council may be paying for this work. Nevertheless, can you explain why this work is being done? What is the expected cost? And when can residents expect the work to be finished?
Councillor Sword.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I was not the portfolio holder at the time that these works were agreed, nor when they commenced. Indeed, this was agreed by the previous administration following awarding of £1 million of funding from the government towards the town centre regeneration. I've been clear publicly that this is not what I would have spent £1 million of government funding on to kickstart town centre regeneration. Nevertheless, I understand the scheme is scheduled to finish in winter this year. I hope that this improvement of public rail makes a difference to the area. However, I'd like to be very clear that this administration has extremely ambitious plans to deliver the biggest programme of regeneration since Harlow was built, including a total rebuilding of the town centre, not a tinkering at the edges, not a repaving, nor a repainting, and plans for that rebuilding will be published in due course.
Have you got a supplementary?
No, thanks. No, thank you.
Mr. Ledward.
Good evening, Chair, and good evening, members. My first question is to Councillor Joe Charles. As at the last full council meeting, it was agreed that the Chief Executive will be asked to submit a formal objection to the Epping Forest District Council Local Development Plan. Can you advise me what date that was sent? When will you make the contents known to the residents, and what is any response has been received from it?
Thank you, Chair. An objection to the Epping Forest Local Plan was formally submitted by this authority on the 23rd of September 2021. No response to this has yet been received. The contents of this letter will be made public as part of the main modifications process of the Epping Forest Local Plan. It is understood that the formal communications will be made publicly available at the point at which all comments on the local plan are published. The Council looks forward to the publication of the formal objection as it directly aligns with the motion passed at full Council on the 16th of September 2021.
Have you got a supplementary question?
I have, please.
Can you make sure it is a question, please?
Sorry?
Can you make sure it is a question?
Yes, it is a question, yes. The question is, do the council feel that they should be consulting the Department of Levelling Up and Housing Communities, as well as suggesting that they might intervene in terms of the Epping Forest District Council local plan?
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Chair. This administration will work with all partners to reinforce the motion that it set out at full Council on the 16th of September. We are determined, as one of the elements of the motion, to protect our interests at Broadley Road, but wider than that, it was a Conservative pledge to support the residents to the east, south and west of this town, and we will endeavour to do that and work with partners to realise that ambition.
Mr. Levitt, you have a second question.
I do. Thank you very much for the answer, the first one. The second question is to Councillor Michael Hardware. As a result of the ill feeling expressed by residents living in Bingham's to the warehouse developments nearby, I understand the Council undertook to review the procedures it uses when advertising planning applications. Can you advise me if this review has taken place? If not, when will it be completed? And if it has, what changes the Council has or will make to the procedures used?
Councillor Harlow.
Thank you for your question. And yes, we have been undertaking a review of our planning procedures and communications, and this is still ongoing. There is an item on the next Cabinet agenda reviewing the Council's statement of community involvement, which sets out how we will consult residents on forward planning, such as the local plan review, new community infrastructure levy, supplementary planning documents, and, as relating to your question, with development control planning applications. This will set out some of the changes we propose for consultation. There are three participants in the planning process: the applicants themselves, the public, and the Council and Council members. Our aim is to make the process as transparent and accessible as we can for all three participants. We have already introduced measures to ensure Council members are fully aware of all planning applications as they are validated. They now receive a weekly report. We are reviewing the letters we send to residents, advising them of planning applications to ensure people know what they are and not mistaking them for circulars and put them straight in the bin. The content of the letter is also being looked at, ensuring it is readable, in plain English, says everything it needs to, and directs people to where there is further information. We're also considering the size of the area around a site where a letter is sent, looking to do more than the legal minimum. Making the website more accessible so that residents can find the further information they are seeking. This could include a mapping application so that they are more readily identifiable, and asking applicants to provide a summary of the application to make it easier for the public to understand the key points. By law, a notice has to be posted near to the property and the application has to be advertised in a physical newspaper. As we are all aware, we only have the Harlow Guardian, which only a few people read. We are looking at other media outlets in the town to ensure greater outreach to residents. When an application comes before the Development Management Committee, we are considering increasing the number of speakers for large complex or controversial applications, allowing all residents to give their views. And we are looking at the broadcasting and virtual involvement of people with the committee. We saw far greater involvement and engagement during lockdown when meetings were virtual, which we would like to see carry on. Once this review is concluded, the recommendations to be adopted will be announced. Thank you.
Mr. Everett, do you have
I do, but just I'm going to say thank you for that comprehensive answer. Supplementary question: will the Harlow Council be paying any form of compensation to the residents of Bingham's most affected by this warehouse development?
The issues that the residents have at Bingham's are still being investigated and researched, so I can't really answer that question at the moment.
Thank you.
Mr. Holt?
I'll take it as read.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Carter, but I think it's about time something was really done about this, as this has been occurring ever since I've been on my property, 12 years, and I think it's extremely important that something's done. And refusing access does delay work.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the end of the question.
Refusing access does delay the work. The incident that happened 2 weeks ago. Oh, he's only an apprentice, he doesn't need ID.
Thank you, Mr. Hope. Having been involved with both KID previously and HDS, I am aware it's one of those issues that comes up on a regular and too frequent basis. Also, engaging with tenants, that is a two-way street, because we're probably telling the tenants, make sure that they're identified. We keep on telling HCS, and HCS keep on telling their staff, they have to have ID. But what I said in the answer is, when these things happen, I either tell your housing officer or go back to HCS direct and tell them of the incident, so that HCS can actually deal with it. The problem is, there are a lot of comments coming through. Until we can actually identify who's actually involved, there's not very much they can do about it. So the key thing is to pass the details on to either to the housing officer or to me.
I'm sorry, I know I'm not allowed to come back on that, but I've had three stage 1 complaints, mostly not upheld on the point. And told 5 housing officers.
Mr. Hope, you have a second question?
Oh yes, sorry, I forgot that one. Take it as read.
Have you a supplementary?
Yes.
Can you kindly make it a question, please, Mr. Hope?
Oh, it is a question. Can you be sure that the trees will be watered, as I am fed up with council taxpayers' money being wasted by schemes not being maintained, i.e. swimming pool?
Yes, I quite agree.
Questions from the councillors? Councillor Davis. Have you a supplementary?
Why is it taking 6 months to finally come up with this answer?
Yes, my apology, I was supposed to write to you a good few weeks ago. with the answer, but unfortunately I forgot.
Your second question, Councillor Davis?
Will the present leader of the council please give details, if any, of official meetings between Harlow Council members and officers and Epping Forest Council members and officers since May 2021 to discuss the Epping Forest local plan? Meetings have taken place. Excuse me. Can minutes of these meetings be published?
Councillor Harlow.
Harlow Council has extensive liaison with Epping Forest District Council at both member and officer level as part of the Harlow and Gilston Garden Town Partnership. Many of the conversations about the Epping Forest local plan have taken place in these fora. Additionally, informal meetings took place in late August and early September at a political leadership level between Harlow Council and Epping Forest District Council to discuss the Epping Forest local plan. There are no minutes of these meetings as the discussions were informal. At officer level, formal meetings outside of ongoing meetings within the HGGT structure took place with the EFDC to discuss local plan issues as well as other matters on 15th September and 6th of October. Minutes of these meetings are not published.
Councillor Davis, have you supplementary?
Yes, Chair. Could I ask? I know the leadership of the group opposite are in disarray at the moment with so many different leaders, and looking to Councillor Hardware at the moment as the leader of the group. We had, Chair, if I could actually ask, we had a long lecture from Councillor Perrin last year about Epping Forest and so on. So why, since May, hasn't the leadership of the new council and officers formally met Epping District Council to discuss their local plan and the concerns that were expressed at the last council meeting? And I don't mind which of the three leaders answers, Chair.
It looks like there have been considerable discussions informally about this, but the fact is that the Epping Forest local plan is Epping Forest's local plan and has very little to do with us, so it's really up to them how they take it forward, and the inspector. I mean, we have had quite a few discussions about our involvement and our board developments.
Councillor Durkee.
Chair, I'm more than happy to have my question as read, but actually the second part of the question has been completely ignored.
Have you got a supplementary question that you would like to ask?
Well, absolutely. I mean, clearly, Chair, as you probably understand, I'm pretty disappointed that whoever the leader is at the moment has failed to respond to this. But my question would be is, would the new leader in waiting, would he agree with me that the use of council equipment to make idiotic, childish and offensive remarks on social media is totally unacceptable and is against the Noman principles? And what actions will he take to address this issue, as it's clear that these actions are Tory-led?
Thank you, Chair. If Council Durkin has specific incidences where members have breached code of conduct, I would recommend he reports them to the monitoring officer directly. But in wider aspects of his question, I would say that any councillor that's found in breach of the code of conduct would be referred to the monitoring officer and should be held accountable to those standards.
Councillor Durkee, your second question?
Thank you. I'd like to read this, if I may. This year we've seen an increase in racial tension, both at local and at national level. This has been due to many factors, but would he agree that we need to call this out and speak with one voice, that these matters are anti-racist and we need to take strong action against those who promote hatred against others? Black History Month enables us to reflect and celebrate the wonderful diversity of culture within Harlow Town.
As the new leader, what difference will you make to ensure that we do everything to reduce and stop such vile racial behaviour against our friends and our neighbours?
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chair. Hate crime and incidents that are not considered a crime in law but are equally unacceptable not only harm victims but also their friends and families and the wider community. Such behaviour is not acceptable, and we are committed to raising awareness of what hate crime is, how damaging it can be to communities, the difference between a hate crime and a hate incident, and how to report concerns to ensure that perpetrators are dealt with appropriately and are aware that this behaviour will not be tolerated in our town. The Safer Harlow Partnership has identified hate crime as one of the 5 top priorities for 2021-22, and there is an established multi-agency working group that concentrates its efforts on delivering an action plan that aims to raise awareness of what hate crime is and how to report it. The group also works with Essex Police to deliver a programme of hate crime ambassador training, and to date, more than 130 ambassadors have been trained in Harlow. Harlow youth counsellors have also been trained as hate crime ambassadors to help educate other children and young people in Harlow and help protect the next generation from this abhorrent and intolerable type of behaviour. During Hate Crime Awareness Week, between the 9th and 16th of October 2021, the working group delivered awareness raising events in the community, at Harlow College and at places of worship, and was successful in engaging around 200 people at these events and distributing useful and informative resources to members of the public. Councillor Durkin will be aware that Cabinet has recently approved a draft community resilience strategy which will be published later this year following a short consultation period. At the heart of this strategy lies a commitment to build a strong, better connected town that celebrates diversity and helps people from all backgrounds feel a greater sense of belonging and empowerment. This is a strategy that will help build a renewed sense of community purpose and contribute towards identifying and tackling inequality and ensuring social inclusion for all. The strategy is supported by 6 strategic pillars to ensure the whole community will benefit from recovery opportunity, inclusion and future prosperity regardless of identity or background. One of the 6 pillars is centred around safe communities, and we have set out how we will tackle and reduce crime, violence and antisocial behaviour, and how we will work collaboratively with partners to ensure that all residents feel that they are safe in the community and in their own homes and have the confidence to report crime and concerns without fear of recriminations. We will continue to support events like Black History Month and work with partners such as the Harlow Ethnic Minority Umbrella and Integration Support Services to both support and celebrate our wide and wonderfully diverse population and promote all the benefits that this can bring to our town.
Is something much question?
Yes, in the same way that the leader failed to answer my original question 3, in relation to the Chief Executive's responsibility, he also seems to have failed to be able to respond to the final paragraph as the new leader, what difference will you make to ensure? And actually all his answer has been, is a referral to what we already achieved. Could I ask again, as the new leader, what will he do that is different? Because so far he's made all these quotes, but racial tension is still increasing, which is an indication that what we're doing is failing. So as the leader of the council, can I ask again, what is he going to personally do to enable and support our community to address and resolve this issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As I mentioned in the first question, at the heart of our tackling hate crime and antisocial behaviour is the community resilience strategy. And as the new leader, my job will be to make sure that that's fully embedded within our organisation and that we carry that work forward following the consultation. So that is where I will stand. And in any public forum that I'm in, where I'm asked to comment on such things, I will always speak out against hate crime, antisocial behaviour, intolerance of others. Hopefully that puts your mind at ease.
Councillor Biggs.
Thank you, Chair. I will read this one out, and I think I understand why I'm going to read it out when you hear it. In February this year, sadly, Mervyn Judith passed away. People don't know Mervyn. In the 1970s, Mervyn served as leader and chair of Harlow Council, as well as becoming chair of Harlow Development Corporation. He was also the last Labour leader of Essex County Council from 1997 to 2001. Would it be possible to get cross-party support together to form a policy to ensure civic leaders of all political colours, like Mervyn, are properly recognised with a permanent tribute to him, either in the form of a blue plaque or other suitable memorial?
Councillor Perry.
Thank you. And like you, Councillor Vince, I was saying that by Mervyn's passing, his legacy and commitment to the town was considerable. Just outside the chair's suite, you can find Mervyn's portrait along with other previous chairs of the council. All of these people served the town with distinction. I recognise that many civic leaders never receive the honour of being chair, so this administration will look to develop a framework for commemorating civic leaders. I will ensure that there is cross-party involvement in developing this.
Yeah, Councillor Biggs, have you something? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to read this out. Obviously. This is to Councillor Joe Charles, as Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Community Resilience. Would you consider having a thank you event for the people who put so much effort during the worst of the COVID pandemic? Sorry about this. There are officers, councillors, nurses, charities and individuals that put in a lot of effort during the crisis, and I think they should be recognised. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. The Council continues to recognise that the NHS, charities, key workers, faith groups and the many volunteers are doing to support all residents and those who are particularly vulnerable from COVID-19. The acts of courage and selflessness will not be forgotten. The level of community spirit and resilience in Harlow was evident from the first lockdown, and I want the Council to harness this as we work towards a social and economic recovery. But we cannot become complacent as the pandemic is not over yet. The timings for when and how to celebrate the commitment of those who have stepped up to support our community is something the Council has been actively considering. I feel it is premature to say more at this time, as the Council continues to monitor COVID-19 infection levels in the town carefully. The judgment about when the appropriate time for celebration should take place will be included as an action for the cross-party COVID-19 recovery working group. I expect the celebration will take place after the winter period and once COVID-19 infections have returned to lower levels across the town.
Councillor Davis, have you something?
No, Chair. I'd just like to say thank you for the reply, and I know that we are taking notes of this week. Thank you.
Councillor Jim Clark.
Can you confirm that the town park will have a revenue budget for the year April 22 to 23?
Councillor Charles.
Yes, the town park has a revenue budget of nearly £300,000 per annum to enable the park to be maintained to a high standard. This investment has been put in place because the council takes pride in the fact that it has successfully been able to secure yet another Green Flag Award and is determined to maintain its record on the environment.
Councillor Clark, have you something?
Well, just as a member of the Town Park Users Group, I'm sure they'll be very pleased to hear this, Chair. There has been considerable uncertainty before, since the ending of the Heritage Lottery funding. And as you say, the town park is thriving. The park generally is thriving. My supplementary is, if we gain another Green Flag Award, will the council provide another 100,000?
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. The 300,000 per annum for the town park covers, as I'm sure Councillor Clark is aware, but for other members, just so they're informed, the ground maintenance, which is delivered by HDS, and predominantly that £300,000 is allocated to that. Clearly, I cannot preempt what this council will say at budget time, but what I would say to you is that one of our key priorities is the environment, given our early net zero commitment, far earlier than what the government has set out. Our ambition going forward is to continue to successfully secure these green flag statuses across the many green and pleasant parks and environments that we have in the town. And what I would say today is that we would actively consider environmental support as part of any budget that comes up during the budget rounds as we prepare for the next municipal budget that will be outlined early next year. But our commitment to the environment is clear. We back our town park. It is the jewel in the crown of the town, and I think all members agree with that sentiment.
Item 8, motion from council, the Harlow draft town plan. Councillor Edwards, you're proposing this? And who is seconding it? Councillor Davis, do you wish to reserve the right?
Yes, I would.
My reason for moving this motion is that, frankly, in terms of the draft Harlow town plan, as far as I can see, there is just sort of one, possibly two mentions about retrofitting buildings to ensure that they play their part, and there is nothing at all, as far as I can see, other than Harlow intends to be an exemplary in tackling climate change and commits to achieving net zero carbon emissions on paragraph 6.1, and the report on addressing climate change and modal shift. But as far as I can see, there's nothing else in there really about the existing housing stock. And our existing housing stock by 2047, a significant proportion of it will be between 70 and 100 years old. At the time of their build, standards with regards to energy efficiency and insulation were markedly different from those required today. So what this resolution is calling for is a substantial statement in the draft plan to reflect the ambition for all currently existing houses within the town to be insulated and, if necessary, retrofitted to modern energy efficient standards by 2047. And it calls upon the council to quantify the number of houses that will need to be built up to energy efficient standards, embark on a plan for its own housing stock, and take a strong strategic lead in working with others. I note that actually the council has already done some of this work on this previously, in the sense of way back in 2015 or thereabouts, the council, in conjunction with Savills and with, I believe, with Rickety Thorne Thompson Associates, at that time commissioned a review of the council's housing stock. And the council have approximately 9,800 homes rather, including 393 flats. Now what it said was, to bring them up to modern standards at the time, it said that to bring up to SAP 80 standard, 8,918 dwellings of the 9,800 homes that council owned would have to be improved. And it also put a figure in there at that time. To do that, it was saying that it was going to cost in the order of about £110 million in that report. Now, the government recently, I think in the last week or so, put out a notion of that houses could be heated via heat pumps, that sort of thing, and the suggestion that heat pumps would be a good idea. Now, heat pumps will only work efficiently if the houses are insulated properly. If they don't, it just won't, it certainly won't work efficiently, and now will they keep the houses particularly warm. So I suppose what I'm saying is, what I am saying is, that really we need to be doing if we're serious about climate change, addressing the issues around climate change. But one of the things, as well as, you know, a lot of the concentration on here is on the new build stuff and what have you, but actually we as a council need to be doing something about the existing housing stock. We need to do something about our own stock, and we've already started that with some of the decent homes, bringing them up to new windows, etc. And some of the homes I know have had external insulation put on the outside, etc. But we still have a significant number of houses that require further work to be done. So it's about calling on that work to at least to start to address that. It's also about calling on the council to recognise not only has it got a responsibility as far as its own houses are concerned, but it's also got a leadership role. And it's got a leadership role in terms of working with others. Because roughly a third of the houses are council owned. 2/3 of the houses, 1/3 are in owner occupation, another third are private to rent, etc., various ownership. So whilst it's not necessarily the council's responsibility to do that work, it is arguably the council's responsibility, I will wind up, it is arguably the council's responsibility to start to give some strategic lead on that work, in fact, to work with AWS to do that strategic lead. Thank you.
Thank you, back. And a second.
Yeah. Chair, my part in seconding this is basically to seek reassurance from the new administration, because it'd be interesting to see how they actually vote on this resolution tonight. Because at the very beginning, the incoming administration, the very worrying comments by the housing portfolio holder at the very first meeting of the Harlow town plan set kind of concerns running. The previous administration has done extensive work on this score. We've insulated many council houses, and in particular have given attention to sheltered accommodation. We would have liked to have done a lot more, but from 2015 we were certainly handicapped with the austerity programme and the way the then Chancellor Osborne interfered with local government housing finance, which ripped the rug away from our feet when it came to actually properly planning for proper housing maintenance. So basically, we're feeling on this side that we need this resolution so that we can confirm the ongoing intention to make sure that at least public housing in this town is, as Tony said, is brought up to the modern standards that people would expect. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. We welcome this motion tonight as it gives us an opportunity to review the actions taken by the previous administration following the approval of the climate emergency commitment. There, that didn't take long. Apart from planting a lot of trees, most of which have died, part of it is nothing to try and address the urgent need for action. So it's a bit hypocritical to turn around now and start telling us what we should be doing. We hit the ground running in our first council meeting, setting a 2040 net zero target, 10 years ahead of the government's target. We are making swift progress on EV charging points, after 2 years of inactivity by our party officer. At Cabinet next week, there are plans for our tree planting and biodiversity management, proposed by my colleague Councillor Gowan. So, Mr. Chairman, we will not be supporting the motion tonight for a number of reasons. As Councillor Swords tried to explain to Councillor Durkin at a recent Cabinet meeting on the town plan, I think about 8 times he had to say, the town plan is not a prescriptive, detailed implementation plan. It is a visionary concept document, setting out what could be done to make the town better. The plan was approved for consultation at that meeting. and the party opposite are free to respond in any way they choose, and we await their contribution with interest. We are bringing forward other plans and strategies which will address the implementation of carbon reduction and maintain our properties along with other issues. We have the 30-year housing business plan coming before council in January, setting out our priorities and budget for that period. As well as plan maintenance, we will be looking to reduce the carbon impact of our residential properties and to make them more thermally efficient. In the quarterly performance review of the council programme that went to the last council meeting, Councillor Edwards, and in particular Councillor Danvers, will have noticed the current budget for energy efficiency works of over £2 million. So clearly, we are taking energy efficiency and fuel poverty seriously. I do recall back in 2015 the full stock condition survey that the council did with Savills, and also the thermal efficiency survey that we had and one of the things that came out of that was external funding for the external cladding of some properties. Part of the £2 million in this year's energy efficiency budget is focused on 183 properties which are currently in Band E EPC ratings and requiring insulation and energy efficiency works. We are undertaking pilot exercises in 2 different archetypes to address these issues, and they will also benefit those in fuel poverty. So yes, we are looking at improving the projects. In addition, the key plank of the 2040 net zero target is for council to move away from gas boilers in our operational buildings, with no new ones to be installed until 2025. As Councillor Danvers has alluded to, discussions are already underway between Housing and HDS over options for gas boiler replacement. However, methods such as eco-gas, hydrogen or electric boilers are still in early stages of development. At the moment, there are limitations as to the effectiveness of air and source heat pumps and the storage of the energy that they create. So there is still some way to go, but it will be in the housing business plan for the future. Needless to say, we will be looking to the government for financial assistance for this work. And then in January, there will be the recommendation from the Cabinet Policy Development Working Group of a refreshed housing strategy, which will cover, amongst other priorities, the needs of the private housing sector as well. So, Mr. Chairman, this administration is taking the climate emergency seriously. It is taking dealing with our housing stock seriously. We have the plans and strategies to tackle it and protect our homes and residents. Unlike the party opposite, who are now floundering around trying to play catch up.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to enter the debate, but when I heard my name, I thought it was a good opportunity. It is absolutely disappointing that we can't even agree on something as plain and simple about what matters to our environment, to our community, and to our local housing. We end up playing the silly game of party politics when we really know what the real issues are out there, and collectively we could come together under this motion and try to make that difference. But oh no, the party opposite will never ever agree with anything that is sensible or rational because it's come from the Labour department. Let you try to pretend everything is okay, and it's not. The only thing that we produce in this council is hot air, and we do precious little else. But now, this year, in next week, there is a golden opportunity that we, as political champions, community champions, could come together and start making that difference. So it's a missed opportunity. And all I would say to comment in relation to the visionary document, as it is absolutely called, it is made, designed and celebrated by 3 blind mice. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Durkin, I am disappointed that the group administration opposite are not going to support this motion, but not unexpected by it. They completely miss the point of this motion. This motion is about aspiration. We talk about the local plan and we debate the local plan through thick and thin, and we debated what should be included in a local plan. This motion is about existing stock. We should have aspiration. You as an administration should have aspiration, not just about a local plan. You should have aspiration about existing stock. The comments made by Councillor Carter calling the motion hypocritical, I find totally incorrect. And can I just remind you of a few points? We made an excellent start to tackling fuel poverty, even though we had diminished funding coming in and HRA was in critical condition. We still invested time after time in trying to tackle fuel poverty. We made an excellent start in investing in our supported housing and all the people within that. I remember on a personal basis when I was in the role of Cabinet Member for Housing, we did regular reports to Cabinet about our investments, about gas boiler replacements, and I remember regularly Councillor Charles used to ask me the same question every single Cabinet. Can I please give him the assurance that we wouldn't do this work during the winter? And it used to be a hardy kind of debate on that, and I'd give him the same assurance every single time, but he'd keep coming back with the same question. We were tackling boiler investment, we were tackling fuel poverty. This motion is about aspirations for our current stock, and I'm not surprised that, again, like Tony Durkin, I'm completely disappointed that you've missed the point of this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Salt.
I wasn't planning to speak either, but when Councillor Durkin gets to speak, I can't resist. I'll keep it short, but I would invite any member opposite, when they stand to conclude on the motion, if they could set out the cost of these plans and where that money is set to come from. Not the cost of 2015 that the consultant gave you, but the cost of the plans that you'd like us to adopt tonight. And the other point, well, there's two further points I wish to make. Councillor Carter spoke first about all the things we're doing to tackle this problem. He also started with, he may have missed it because obviously he didn't say anything, what the previous administration did between 2019, July 2019, when they passed the climate change emergency motion, and when they were booted out in May. So again, when anyone opposite stands to conclude the motion, I'll be delighted to hear what action they took to retrofit homes in that time.
Yeah, I'll be brief, but still, there was something going on between 2019 and 2021 that was quite a huge thing in our town and across the country. In terms of the trees, which I was upset when Councillor Charles told me last time a lot of trees had died, the reality is that actually when you plant a large amount of trees, the reason you plant them so close together is actually the success rate for planting new trees is only actually 30%, whatever you do. That wasn't particularly helpful in one area of the town when an employee of the council may have killed someone, so I'll leave you guys to look into that one. In terms of what we did in terms of the climate change, as you will know, in the past 5 years, Harlow Council reduced carbon emissions by 39%. I said to Councillor Gunn at the previous cabinet, and I completely support your push to become carbon neutral as soon as possible. Although I do bear in mind your plans only actually plan for 11% reduction in carbon emissions in the next 5 years to get to the 50%. We had a discussion about why it was 11 and why it was 15. It's 15% of where we are now, but it's 11% since 2016. That's all I'm going to say, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Edward, would you like to start, please? No, looks like it.
I think it's a great shame, firstly, that this can't be part of. It's not going to be passed tonight. In fact, we're going to vote against it. I think it's a great shame, because basically what it was setting out was some aspiration. And it's asking for those aspirations to be included in this draft town plan, which is out for consultation. So part of the consultation was to be saying, well, this is, making a suggestion that we ought to have something in here about our existing housing stock, about bringing our existing housing stock up to a modern standard, but you've rejected that. I was also slightly amused by Councillor Carter when he was lecturing us on the fact that he was saying, oh no, this is just nothing, there's nothing specific in here. When the same way when Councillor Swords was saying, oh, there's nothing, he was saying that Councillor Swords was saying how they're saying there was nothing specific in here, it's purely an aspirational document. Councillor Swords at the time wasn't talking about this. He was talking about the master plan. The debate we're having with the master plan. This is about the town plan that Councillor Harlow contributes. But anyway, that's an aside. If you don't know what plan you're talking about, I'm surprised that the administration's going to go anywhere, frankly. However, moving forward, if you're not going to, Councillor Sewell raised the question about how much is it going to cost. That was an estimation was given of £115 million way back in 2015, 2016. Of course, there's a whole lot of work that's got to go on as to what this is going to cost. But if you don't start out by saying this is what your intention is, how can you then go on to look at, to be saying, this is what, you've got a whole lot of intentions in here that are uncosted. What you have to be saying, no, this is our aspiration, this is what we're going to seek to achieve, in the hope that you can do that. What we do know is, it is going to cost a lot of money. And we ought to be starting out now to be saying, well, okay, if we're going to build green houses up to modern standards, how do we do it? How do we work with whoever it is, whether it's with central government, whether it's with the other sectors that I was talking about earlier? How do we go about doing that? How do we go about ensuring that we can bring houses up to a modern standard and ensure that they've got the right levels of insulation and ensure that they've got the right levels of heating, whether it is heat pumps, or whether it is hydrogen heating with various sources. And I appreciate that the technology and all that is changing all of the time. I watched looking at your Harlow the other day where they referred us on to a YouTube which is put forward by Bosch, if I remember rightly, Worcester Bosch, on hydrogen boilers and the interesting work that's going on there. So there's a whole lot of work that's, but we as a council have to be starting to look at that and have to be starting now to start to address those issues and making an aspiration that that's what we're going to do as far as housing is concerned, because otherwise, come 2047, I won't be around, very few people here won't be around, but our kids and our grandchildren certainly aren't going to thank us if we've not got to grips with some of these very, very important issues that we need to do about housing and the way that we heat our properties, etc. And if we just sort of fall back into oh no, this has come up from this side, therefore we'll knock it back, or it's come up from that side, therefore we'll knock it back to debate. It's about time we got a bit ad-hoc about this, and I'm disappointed this is not going to be accepted, but all we can then do is someone made Councillor Carter rather, made a number of sort of statements about what he intended to be doing. All I can say is we will be keeping a very close eye on what he's done and how it's done going forward. Thank you.
We'll now go to the vote on the motion about the Harlow draft town plan. Those in favour? Those against? The motion failed. Right, item 2 of the motion from Council, Universal Credit. Councillor Gibbs? Councillor Gibbs, are you going to reserve the right?
Thank you, Chair. I spent a lot of time thinking about how I was going to address this motion this evening. I actually submitted this motion on the 14th of October, the day before the absolutely terrible events that happened in Southend. And the comments that I've made to the new group, it was just the new council yesterday, I know it's not official yet, and others in this room are absolutely genuine. I remember in 2016, with my red rose out on staying in the street corner, and I got a phone call telling me that maybe it was an overreaction, but I was told I need to take my rosette off because I might be a target. And that really hit home to me. And ultimately, Joe Cox was right. We do have more in common than that which divides us. And on a lighter note, I was reminded of that on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, where Councillor Leopard, Councillor Carter, the man in the audience, and myself were all supporting the team in red. I'm not talking about Man United or Liverpool. I was talking about Harlow Town. Sadly, we didn't have a lot to cheer for on that occasion. It was a 0-0 draw. Look, I don't think the Tories, Conservative Party, are evil. I don't think they're despicable. I don't think they're horrible. Some of you might be. Some of us probably are. And I'll let you into a little secret. I've even got a friend who's one. I know. He works for the UMPs. I can't remember which one. Maybe you can find out for him. So this motion is me just saying I disagree with what the Conservative government is doing. I think they are wrong to remove the uplift. Now I understand the arguments. I understand that it was supposed to be a temporary measure to support people through this pandemic. But we know from the figures that, name checking your Harlow again, the figures that Mr. Casey shares us on a daily basis, that this pandemic isn't over and there really are still people who are suffering. And I'm pleased that actually Harlow's Conservative MP agrees with me. He said, when Labour tabled a motion against this removal of the uplift, I voted for the motion because I want families to have certainty, and that it's important the uplift will not be taken away. And I thank Roger for that, and I hope others will agree with me. I think, Councillor Perry, you missed a trick when you asked about hate crime earlier. I think the most important thing we can all do in our community is listen to people. I hope people really bang on about it, but I've done over 100 councils just this year, and I generally enjoy talking to people. I know you all do as well, so that's the answer there, really. I am disappointed, to be honest, that I've only just received this amendment this evening, just before the meeting. It's been typed up, it's quite lengthy, so it's not one just come up off the cuff. And I will be rejecting it, give you a heads up. And I will talk about more in my summing up. But I would ask if you do want to argue anything I've got to say and a broken motion, please let me know in advance. I know you don't have to, but it would be really appreciated moving forward, and that's one of the goals. But yeah, I'm not going to stand here and just try and rush for the sake of it. But I do think that, as it says in the motion, 11,000 people in Harlow rely on universal credit. I don't want to talk too much about my day job, but I work with some of the strong people in our town, and I think this is going to be hugely effective. So, whether you decide you're going to support this amendment and change my motion, that's up to you. But I would ask that you do take that very, very seriously, and you do join with your own MP in questioning the decisions made by the government. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Salt.
I think that to be seconded.
Yes, I'm Clark, who is seconding Councillor Williams. Thank you.
I read the amendment.
Yes, good.
I'll read the amendment and make a speech, and that's when it comes back. So it's I'm proposing an amendment to remove the words actively participate in the Kickstart scheme and promote the scheme to local employers, and ask the Chief Financial Officer to write a letter on behalf of the Council to the Chancellor and Prime Minister requesting that the Government reintroduce the universal credit uplift payment as a matter of urgency and replace with the words recognise the enormous package of financial support the Prime Minister, Chancellor and Her Majesty's Government put in place throughout the coronavirus pandemic and introduced in the 2021 budget yesterday, including cutting the universal credit taper rate by 8%, increasing the work allowances by £500, resulting in Harlow families keeping an extra £1,000 a year, a new £500 million household support fund to help families with bills, food and clothing, the 12-year fuel duty free, saving the average Harlow motorist £15 every time they fill up and £30 for small van drivers, increasing the national living wage next year by 6.6%, resulting in a £1,000 pay rise for thousands of low-paid Harlow residents. £200 million per year to run the free school meal and holiday activity camp provision throughout school holidays to help thousands of young families in Harlow, ending the public sector pay freeze, providing over £250 million of support to Harlow businesses through grants and loans throughout the pandemic, the furlough scheme which protected over 19,000 jobs in Harlow, the self-employment support scheme which equated to £60 million of support for Harlow self-employed workers, the £407 billion the government spent to support the nation through the pandemic, the wide-ranging package of measures introduced in the 2021 budget to support employment in Harlow, and calls on this council to actively promote all of the measures in place to support Harlow families with the cost of living, and actively participate in these schemes where it is possible for a local authority to do so, including by supporting job creation to ensure more Harlow families have secure, well-paid jobs.
Councillor Williams, do you reserve the right?
I do.
Councillor Durkin.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not entirely sure why the Tories opposite are so opposed to the Kickstart scheme, and it was their scheme in the first place, so all they're doing is kicking it further down the road. As my leader says, I'm also disappointed that your amendment, whilst it glorifies the Prime Minister, the Chancellor and actually the government, it makes no mention, which is quite a surprise, and I'm sure he's going to be disappointed, our own local MP, who champions all the time about fuel. Well, why didn't you mention him then? You know, I mean, the only person who's getting any mention is from this particular side. The problem is this significantly changes the motion, and I'm not entirely sure why it has been accepted of this, because this is nothing more than a glorified stroking of the Tory ego as a result of this today's and yesterday's budget. It is a self-promotional motion rather than anything else, and like the previous one, it completely misses the target about what our aims and aspirations are about our local town. But the local person in Harlow will see this, and what they know is petrol and fuel prices are going up, gas prices are going up, electricity is going up, water rates are going up, national insurance is going up, food prices are going up, the use of food banks is going up. What Harlow will also recognise, if we want to have exotic holidays, those prices are going down, and champagne is going down, which I'm absolutely sure is the #1 buyer at the moment at Wetherspoons. It is absolutely an insult that you are fundamentally changing this, because actually what we need to be doing is listening to the people with credibility. And I have to say, most politicians do not have that level of credibility in the community. But if you look at the champions like Marcus Rashford, and even your own education advisor, who is saying it's too little that you are putting into education that will damage education for this generation. I would also say, which we haven't mentioned of course, is other areas that Harlow are disappointed in, is still there is no new announcement about our hospital, but we do know through private eye what is happening. And even today, we hear the mantra of those opposite about levelling up being rejected by this government through the application for levelling up for our town centre. For those opposite, you should hang your head in shame over what you are putting our town through. Our motion was to reinstate, reinforce and work with others to make it a better place. And all you have done is self-congratulated yourself and stroked the ego of people who do not need stroking. So I, as you can guess, will be opposing the amendment, but may well speak to the main motion. Thank you, Chair.
speaking against the amendment because it seems to be living in a parallel universe. It's interesting, in the BBC tonight, it's got budget 2021, millions will be worse off in 2022, says IFS, Institute of Fiscal Studies. Low-income households will also feel the pain, as the cost of living is set to increase faster than benefit payments. Millions will be worse off in the short term, says Paul Johnson, Director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies. I looked at the Child Poverty Action Group's response to the spending review. What it says is, the long overdue decision to lower the UC taper rate will help a lot low earners, it said. But there was nothing for those who cannot work, carers, those with children, and people who are sick or disabled, who face the same cost pressures as other households and will still have a black hole in their finances after the universal credit cut. So let's just bring it down to Harlow. What does it mean for Harlow? I looked at the figures. The last figures that I was able to get hold of were for September. At that point, there were 11,719 people on universal credit. 4,672 were working. 7,047 were not working. And of that the 7,047, 2,652 had no work requirements. So there's 7,000 people that we know of that are going to be directly affected by this, well, I will call it a cut, even though the suspension of the uplift. And let's just put a little bit of history around that. In 2013, originally, universal credit allowed 26,000 per year for couples with children and 18,200 per year for adults. In 2016, that was reduced to 20,000 for couples with children and 13,400 for single adults. The £20 uplift, which was £1,000, which was introduced in March 2020 and ended in October 21, in no way even compensated for the £6,000 reduction in universal credit between 2013 and 2016 for couples with children, or the nearly £5,000, just under £4,800 reduction for single adults. So don't let us in any way pretend that somehow or other that uplift, which was a temporary uplift, was somehow or other a generous uplift. It wasn't generous in the first place. So we now have a situation whereby we know that at least 7,000 people in Harlow have had a £20 a week taken off their universal credit. And we know that that's taking place while we've got rising inflation in particular in terms of food costs, in terms of petrol costs, in terms of heating costs, all of which hit hardest the poorest in our community. And we know that that's going to happen. Prior to this even taking place, we know that there are increasing numbers going to the food banks. We know that poverty is increasing. And in that context, we take pride somehow or other, or a government takes pride in saying, well, that will go ahead. And by the way, for those that are able to work, we will reduce the income penalty for those that are able to get into work. Well, whilst I fully agree that that people benefit from being in employment, we also have to make certain that for those that aren't in employment, there is at least humane standard of living for people doing. And we also have to remind ourselves when it comes to employment levels and the support that's provided for people who are unemployed,
across Europe as a whole, we're one of the lowest when it comes to benefits that are paid out. So I fully reject your amendment. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to say much of what Tony has said himself. I mean, I'd hope for a kinder, less punitive approach to welfare when they first introduced the uplift. But that has been brutally demolished recently. For all the reasons that Tony has spoken of, the increasing food banks, property, child property, and all the rest of it. I'm very, very disappointed that this amendment, so-called amendment, has been put forward. It's not an amendment, it's just an entirely different resolution altogether. The budget itself has missed an opportunity because it doesn't fully compensate for those even working in Harlow. No help at all to anyone who's not working, unemployed, carers, those who have young children, people with disability. They've all been relegated to the bottom of the pile. It's as if, again, the government wants to punish those who are poorest in society. And those are the people in Harlow who desperately need our support, and there's not an ounce of support offered in this amendment. So I am definitely going to oppose it. We originally suggested writing to the Chancellor and the PM, urging him to use money to reinstate the uplift. And there's money over in this budget. He's from the improvements, so-called improvements in the upturn of the economy. But we should be still pushing for that restoration of the uplift to all who are in receipt of it. And this resolution, this amendment, does nothing to improve that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second this amendment, but I note with interest comments from both sides that we do have a duty to support those residents that need the help the most, and we'll work with any organisation that can help us do that. I note with interest comments from Councillor Durkin about things going up, and I tell you what else is going up, Chair. Wages are going up. Data from the ONS shows that in real terms, total and regular pay are now growing at a faster rate than inflation. Total pay going up 6%, regular pay going up 4.5%. We need to take advantage of growth. The UK is growing faster than anywhere else in the G7. And this government and this administration are focused on a jobs-led recovery from COVID-19. Now, I noticed just before this meeting, I had a look on a popular job board, and there are 906 jobs on Indeed. 8 vacancies at Harlow District Council, 4 at HTS. And in the budget yesterday, Rishi Sunak announced a 42% increase spent on skills and training to level up our communities, including a UK-wide numeracy service called Multiply, which will improve numeracy skills to 500,000 people. Maybe some members of the opposition can benefit from that as well. The Conservatives are the real party of public services, and that's clear. Now, the good for opposition will disagree. But what is their plan, I ask you? Hike those taxes, race to the bottom. They would rather the needy were needier, provided everyone else was less off. And do not create opportunity, wealth, jobs and growth in this way. And it is lack of vision from the other side, but there's probably a reason why they were bombed out of administration in May. And when I speak to many residents, they tell me that the opposition and their leadership is weak, weak, weak. They have no confidence in the opposition on the economy, no confidence in the opposition on jobs, no confidence in the opposition on growth and regeneration. They are clearly out of touch, out of tune, and out of ideas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to support my colleagues on this amendment, and I've listened carefully to the speeches from both sides of this chamber, and I think I just want to reiterate something that has been a driving force behind this administration, and I know will be with the new leader, and that is extending opportunity and prosperity in this town. And what we found yesterday with the budget is a budget that was there to support the many people in this town that need a hand up and support to achieve their life ambitions. If you take the announcements around universal credit and cutting the take rate, a decisive move for many people in this town who want recognition from this government that they're there to reduce the cost of living. But on top of that, we've got a living wage increase. We're lifting the public sector pay freeze. But we've gone even further than that, and I know that our hard-working Member of Parliament, Robert, has yet again scored another win by achieving a freeze in fuel duty. The impact of those measures on the cost of living of Harlow residents is critical. It's critical at a time that we know people over the last 18 months have had to confront what is something that for many people has grown in anxiety in their own families and has scared people. And that's why this council has committed with strong intent to back a community resilience strategy that is there to resolve the social and economic consequences that have been borne out over the last 18 months. And I'm proud to be part of a team here that is focused on what it can do as a local authority, as a community leader, to address the cost of living challenges that people may face. And what we got from the government yesterday is a Chancellor and a top team in Whitehall that are focused front and centre on some of those people that are struggling in our community today. I want to just address some of the points that members opposite have raised. They said that the budget did nothing for disabled people. Well, that isn't true. If you look at the Red Book and you look at the Departmental Settlement for the Work and Pensions Department, you will see an injection of £150 million, not a small sum, £150 million to add on to the funds to support disabled people to find work and be supported through that journey. I think that shows and highlights a compassion in this government to support all those individuals who may be vulnerable or need a helping hand. We talk about limiting life chances. That again is not true. If you look at the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which was launched as a result of the budget and the spending review, what that means is £2.6 billion. I hasten to add, matching what we used to get from the European Union. But that is directly targeted towards helping people to upskill and to find job opportunities. Because we know people in work, that is life-changing. People in work can achieve their ambitions. And so this administration, backed by a government that has put its fingerprints over an action plan to deliver on the cost of living and support people through this very difficult time, is there and is going to support them. And of course there is more funding to deal with the pandemic. We know we're not out of the woods yet from the pandemic, and we cannot be complacent about that challenge, nor is the government, and nor is this administration. So I would urge caution tonight with what we've heard from the party opposite. They've made a lot of accusations that are not borne out by the truth or facts. This government and this administration is front and centre in our minds, backing those individuals that need support, the cost of living, and the opportunity to succeed. We don't want them to be limited in their life chances. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. What we just heard would be laughable if it wasn't so sad for Harlow families. What have we found? Excuse me. We found £6 billion, £20 a week being taken away from the poorest families in Harlow, 11,000 families. Kindly, apparently, next April, apparently, some of that money will be given back. The top rate of tax, I believe, is 40%.
these low-paid workers will be paying 55 pence in the pound tax. Sunak described it as a cut in tax. I was incredulous when I heard him on the radio this morning actually claiming that he was cutting tax for poor people, when he's just taken away £20 a week, £1,000 a year. National insurance going up next April, almost negating any pay increases that people will get. Rejecting the old age pensioners triple lock. Old age pensioners could look forward to a reasonable increase next April, and the government has actually pulled that away from them. They've rejected the triple lock for whatever reason. I suppose to a certain extent, look after their rich friends. We're told that people have made so much money during the pandemic, a capital gains tax from just a few very, very wealthy people at 0.8% of the gains that they've made could bring in £16 billion. So where's the money coming from if Labour was in charge to pay for that? We're committed to that kind of, let's tax wealthy people, not ordinary people. And what else is going to happen to the poorest people in Harlow's community? They're going to start paying income tax for the first time. Why? One of the very few things that the Tory coalition Liberals did for 5 years, one of the very few things that Osborne did was raise the tax allowance to keep the poorest people out of tax. This government has rejected that, and we shouldn't confuse really. Tories are Tories. When it comes to it, they look after rich people, and they really discriminate against poor people who are working hard and at very, very low incomes. They're faced with 5% inflation, which will negate any wage increase of your 5% that you're talking about. The fuel prices that people actually face of gas and electricity. To talk about petrol prices, I filled up the other day, and if I'm not mistaken, I paid £1.44 for a litre. I've never paid so much money for petrol in my life, Chair. So it's not the recognisable society that I know that the Tories are actually painting this picture. So yesterday, I think it's Mark Anthony praising Caesar and burying him. Well, I think the praise came yesterday, and the press are absolutely unanimous in burying this budget today. Thank you.
Councillor Beach, do you want to sum up?
We're still on the amendment, aren't we? We're still on the amendment. We haven't made it down.
I've said I reject the amendment, but I get to talk on the end of as well. Yeah, I reject it for the reason I gave in my open address.
Right, we'll go to the vote on the amendment. Councillor Sawter, would you like to? You don't get a chance.
I'll say that.
Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? Would you like to?
So summing up now, yeah?
Yeah.
No, we're on the main debate. No, it's the main debate.
Does anybody else want to speak?
Yeah.
Councillor Sawter.
Thank you, Chair. I assume we're on the main debate now. Genuinely, we can have party political digs in this chamber all day long, and I will correct some facts, from spurious claims. I thought you could spurious claims coming from the other side. And I will simply stick to numbers in my response to your facts. But before I get on to that, I genuinely understand the premise of the motion, I really do. And I too recognise and concur with the deep concerns the opposition have about the cost of living. Indeed, I think the cost of living is one of the most pressing matters facing this nation. Families across Harlow are facing unprecedented financial difficulties, and I think this motion comes at an apt time, given the budget yesterday. But before, I'm sure someone on the opposition will speak, and I have 3 questions in my speech that I would love anyone genuinely on the opposition to answer. Now, I just want to know one thing that the Chancellor said yesterday that stuck out to me more than anything. Now, unemployment at the peak of the pandemic last July was predicted to reach 12%. It's now expected to peak at 5.2%. That is not a statistic. That's real life. That means thousands of Harlow residents who were expected to lose their job will be keeping their job through the worst health and economic crisis for over 300 years. Now, the three questions I have for anyone who wishes to speak, and I genuinely mean they are three genuine questions, and I hope someone will confront the truth on the opposition benches. First, why table this motion now? When the uplift ended many weeks ago, why not table this in the September full council? If it's that, you place such importance on it, why table it now? Now, as I said, I'm sure we all believe the cost of living is one of the most limiting factors in terms of life chances. There are a plethora of statistics to show this, whether it's remarkable statistics that show just how much a free school meal increases attainment compared with no or little lunch, or whether it's the fact that an increased tax burden on lower earners leads to worse standards of living. The statistics are clear. But this motion is not about statistics, because they don't matter. In fact, the words we say in this chamber don't matter. What matters is the action that is taken to reduce the burden on working people across this town. The action that is taken to support the single mother in my ward who works both a day and an evening job to look after her son whilst claiming universal credit. A mother who I've spent an awful lot of time speaking to truly understand the trouble she faces and how this council and the government can support her and give her and her son the very best life chances. And before anyone on the opposition benches stands up and tries to lecture me about living on low incomes, living on benefits, living on free school meals, I've done it. I've been there and I've done it. Now, the action that I mentioned has been taken through the pandemic. The Prime Minister said that the government would do what it takes to get our country through the pandemic, and that is what has been done. 19,000 jobs in Harlow protected. 6,000 self-employed workers in Harlow supported. Hundreds of businesses backed. A budget that has given thousands of the lowest paid people in Harlow an inflation-busting pay rise whilst cutting the taxes they pay. Higher wages, lower taxes. But that is not enough. The Holiday Activities Programme, giving hundreds of Harlow families free school meals throughout the holidays alongside engaging activity programme. The Household Support Fund to help thousands of Harlow families with their bills, food prices and clothing costs. Work allowances increased, and the taper rate cut, meaning those on universal credit will keep £1,000 a year more of their hard-earned money. Fuel duty frozen, saving Harlow motorists £15 every time they fill up. The public pay sector freeze ended, a 6.6% increase to the national living wage. Not a statistic, but £1,000 pay rise for those earning it next year. That is what the Conservatives believe in. Not statistics, not sound bites, but real support for people across our town, to give them every possible support to build a better life. My second question to any Labour member who may rise to speak in favour of this motion now: if the Labour Party truly do care about the cost of living for Harlow families, why has their party voted and will be voting against every single one of those measures? I could list statistics all evening about how much better off families in Harlow are thanks to Conservative action, cutting taxes for lower earners and delivering high wages. Councillor Danvers, you mentioned about the tax-free personal allowance. What was it in 2010 when you left office? £6,475. What is it today? £12,570. Cutting taxes, taking millions of people out of paying income tax, something you never did. Indeed, it was the Conservative Party who introduced the national living wage. And guess what? The Labour Party voted against it. My third and final question for any Labour member who may rise to speak: why, if they were on the side of lower income... I'm wrapping up. If they were on the side of lower income families in our town, why did they increase the council tax burden on those families 8 times in the last 9 years, and not just increase it, but increase it by the highest amount they were able to do without a local election? Because the truth is, Chair, it is not about political debate, it is not about statistics, indeed it's not about what's said in this chamber. This is about cutting the cost of living for families in every corner of our town, just as the government doing, and as this new council will do when we cut council tax for Harlow families.
Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Chair. Yet again, and some of us who've been here probably too long, just suffer the ignorance of the Tories by taking one opportunity and just measuring it and changing it into some Tory propaganda that is absolutely saying everything is wonderful, everything bright, everything is gorgeous in their eyes. With respect, you know, I know you're fairly new to the council, but it is really important that you listen to the chair and you allow, you may not listen to us, but I think you should give us the decency to allow us to speak without interruption.
Like you do.
Sorry, Chair. The councillor was trying to do your job there, and also he's meant to be making comments about his motion, not about the Conservative views of his motion.
The standard orders.
We're in open debate, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that interruption, but I don't know what it was about. But absolutely, we need to go back to why this motion was brought to this chamber at this particular time, which was with care and compassion to support our community. But actually what it's turned into is nothing more than a sideshow about Tories playing God as though they know what they're doing and they know why they're doing it. We are here as local elected people to support and encourage and enable our community. And this is where the divide is the fact is that we, Chair, sorry, Chair, there's no point in having a debate. If you're going to get interrupted, could you just organise it or I'll stop speaking? We need to get this sorted out once and for all.
Can you stop interrupting somebody speaking? Who was it?
Who knows who it is? Who is it always?
Councillor Danvers, normally.
Yes, right. He's proud of it, not is
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. For the second interruption, all I want to say is that this motion was designed with care and compassion to support our vulnerable sector of our community. It's that pure and it's that simple. That's what we were trying to work with you and others in relation to this. This motion is not about the ego of others or the people who have pretense that they want to get into high office sometime in the future. And as local councillors, that's our need, that's our request, that is our response to these particular issues. It is so disappointing that we will not be able to support our own resolution because you have destroyed it by making it something that it wasn't intended to be. However, there is a glimmer of light on the horizon, which my colleague has said, is that even though fuel's going up, gas is going up, electricity is going up, national insurance is going up, all the other things are going up, champagne's coming down, but we're going to get a tax rebate. It was told we would get it 5 months ago, we're still waiting, we're still looking forward to it, and hopefully as the new leader, when he does make his speech, he will actually tell us the date of when we're all going to get our money back. Thank you very much.
No, I've not spoken to the main debate.
Yes, it's spoken the main debate.
Thank you. Moving back to the main point again. The question was asked, why now? The reason why now was that this debate was ongoing. Only yesterday, I think it was,
We had the budget Wednesday rather than we had the budget. So, and even given that we've had the budget, the fight isn't over. And I'd also like to remind you that on September the 15th, not one single Conservative MP voted for the removal of the uplift. What did they do? They all abstained. I also want to remind you that the Tory Reform Group and the One Nation Caucus, in a report in April, called for the uplift to be made permanent. It was backed by over 100 Tory MPs, in particular the Northern Research Group. People like Andrew Bridgen, Wash My Mouth Out, Ian Duncan Smith, David Davis, Damien Hirst, Steve Baker, Stephen Crabb, John Sherman, William Ray, and even, yes, our own Robert Halfon. Now, at one point, all of those MPs, along with the Labour Party, were saying that this was a mistake. Going down this process of removing this uplift was going to hurt substantially the poorest people in our society. And then what's happened subsequently? The Tories seem to have lost sight of the fact that that's what they once said. And that lost sight of the fact that at that point they were actually sort of trumpeting how they were looking to protect the poorest in our society. And they seem to have been bought off by this sort of, I suppose one might almost call it 30 pieces of silver, really. It's not much else. So we have a situation whereby, as I say, going forward, we've got over 11,700 people on universal credit. We've got 7,047 who are not working in this town. And we know that of that 7,047, they're all taking a £20 cut in the benefits that they're going to receive. So, all I would say is, I mean, in terms of the motion as it now stands, I can't support this motion as it now stands. The majority of this, as I say, you're living in a parallel universe. Certainly not living in the universe that a number of the people I know in Harlow are living in. Not at all. Finish that.
We got that. As I said in my opening remarks, we don't always agree, and this is an example of us not agreeing. When Councillor Williams said leadership has got, I thought it was all about me, but I hope he means the national leadership. A bit harsh, I'm just saying anyway. But I don't think that their budget was a missed opportunity to support people that really need it in this town. And I don't agree, as I say, that yesterday's budget really helped. We are seeing a rise in national insurance. As a council tax bike, we'll talk about that one later. And there's no support with VAT on electricity bills. We've also got a record NHS waiting list, and if Councillor Churchill was here, I'm sure he'd mention my challenge and mention the fact that there's no way to currently see your GP. It's a shame that the Chancellor didn't back Labour's plans to make VAT on energy bills zero for the next 6 months. Instead, he decided to cut tax for banks by £4 million. I obviously support the decision to get rid of the freeze on the wages of public sector workers, something that Labour have called for a number of years now. There is a cost of living crisis, as many people have said, and working people have got a tax increase. There was a talk about growth. The Office for Budget Responsibility says that growth is at 1.3% per year, which leaves us a long way behind others. And the budget fails to invest in a zero carbon economy, and I really hope that this is an oversight and actually we can lead on this. And with regards to cuts to universal credit, the removal of the uplift of £20 will save
6 billion, get the wrong number. But actually, yeah, 6 billion, but actually the take only gives back 2 billion, so I can do the maths on that one. To quickly answer some of the questions that I can't promise to answer all of them, you should send them to you in advance. No, why now? I suppose why now is because now is when I'm talking to residents who are starting to be affected by this. And again, I think the most important thing we can do as councillors and any political party, this is where we probably do agree, and I'm sure Robert Halford would agree, it's about talking to people. I'm not as anti-statistics as Councillor Sawley used to teach statistics, but I would agree actually it's about talking to people about their situations rather than just rely on statistics. Free school meals, and I was very proud when I was portfolio holder for community and wellbeing that we actually supported Harlow Food Bank when the council the government underlined on it. And I was criticised for that at the time, although apparently not although my Wi-Fi broke out, so I missed that. And you know, why have we raised council tax to local authority? Because we've suffered cuts to local finances from central government over the last 11 years. And as you will know, if you cut or freeze council tax, that has a cumulative effect on funding. So that's really boring and not very exciting, but I just wanted to get that on record. As far as I'm concerned, you know, give me an amendment in advance, I might have to consider it. But secondly, this is nothing more in my view than a record amendment, just to sort of, I don't know, maybe want to show this to Rishi later and make an acronym or something, I don't know. But I will, other than the fact I think there's you've kept the first bullet point, I believe, so I will be abstaining on the substantive motion. Thank you, Chair.
Go to the vote on the motion with the amendment. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? That is carried. Item 9, the election of the Levy of the Council. Can I have nominations, please?
Chair, I'd like to propose Councillor Russell Perry to be the next leader of Harlow Council. I have a brief few words to introduce my proposition to you, Chair. Thank you. Councillor Perry was first elected in 2008. He's heading towards 15 years of experience in this council. He's the right man at this time, coming out of a crisis and heading towards a recovery to lead this town forward. He's held several senior roles in the council. First, portfolio holder for regeneration, leading that forward in our administration between 08 and 12. And as we took office recently as the portfolio holder for finance. And I know he has some key announcements to make as leader as he gets started. There are three key things that I just want to pick out about Russell that I think stand him out as the next leader of this town. First of all, it's his passion and energy for not only moving the regeneration project forward, but making sure this town centre, where we're standing today, is absolutely fit for purpose in the 21st century. But on top of that, it's his politics that drives his compassion, not only for the things he does working in the community as a ward councillor, but wanting to extend and enhance opportunity for people across this town. And that's highlighted by the fact that Russell is, of course, a local teacher at Stewards, and he has front and centre of his mind the importance of making sure future generations inherit a town that is not only a great place to live, but has access to not only jobs, but great and fantastic leisure opportunities. It is my pleasure, Chair, to propose Councillor Russell Perry to be the next leader of Harlow Council.
Thank you, Councillor Salford. Is there any other nominations?
I was thinking of it, but
Councillor Perrin, you're duly elected as leader of the council.
Sorry, Chair, you should have asked the assent of the council.
Oh, sorry, do apologise. Are we having the assent of the council? Agreed. Thank you. Item 10, reference from the council. Councillor Perrin, make it quick because we've got 10 minutes before shutdown.
I should take 10 minutes then, Chair. Thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to speak. Before I move on, I'd just like to thank Andrew Johnson, the outgoing leader of our group and this administration, for his many years of service, 20 years. And I know he's also said he will remain an active member of not only this group, but an active member of our community. Andrew is very deeply ingrained in our community, in the arts, in local charity work, and whatever he chooses to do in that sphere, or indeed in this sphere, I know he will have the full support of our group and of me. And I'd just like to take this brief opportunity to thank Councillor Charles for stepping in as the interim leader of our group. He does that whilst balancing very heavy workload and time commitments. And I know he did that because he believes passionately about public service, public duty of the town, and making sure that we get on and deliver our agenda. And he did that at great personal sacrifice to his own time, and I thank him greatly for that. It is a great honour to be in this role, and it was never one when I came into this chamber that I ever thought I would end up doing, because I came into this chamber because I wanted to just make a difference as part of the team. My family has a long history with Harlow. My granddad and my grandmother came to Harlow, were one of the first generation of people that helped to build the town. My granddad, being a builder himself, built was part of the many people that built our estates. Hughes Tower being one of them. He used to sit up there and have lunch. He used to make my great grandmother have a heart attack every time she saw him dangling his legs over the edge. She brought him his lunch, and he took great pleasure in that. My father too, being a builder, continued to help build the town. And I grew up here, being brought up briefly as a young child in London, and then here again. I have a great love of this town. And one can often look back through the past with rose-tinted spectacles, but speaking with many people and looking at many of the great books and photographs of the way the town used to be, I think this side acknowledges, and I think many people do acknowledge, that the town is looking a little tired. It's looking tired, it's got tired roads, the estates are tired, the town centre's tired. And even though it's a great place to live, it needs renewal. So even though tonight on the agenda is the leader of the council, and that's me, I'm not really the agenda. The agenda is the delivery of the key pledges we made back in May. That is the agenda we should be focusing on. Be that to deliver a council tax reduction, and we will get more of that in the next fiscal year. That's the usual way of doing these things. To help out people who are struggling, as we've heard, with the cost of living. And it's action that we're taking, not just hollow words. We'll build more council homes for those people that are on the council waiting list, to try and give them the opportunity to have a home, to have the dignity of being able to live an independent life in a safe, secure environment. Regenerating our town centre, that's one of our key pledges, and our estates. Massive pledge on that. So if you're a local business and you're in our town centre and you're finding you're struggling, we will do everything we can to regenerate that town. This is an administration about renewal. Working with our community following the pandemic to ensure that social and economic regeneration occur and nobody is left behind. That there is prosperity for all. And we will continue to carefully monitor the statistics and act accordingly in light of the COVID pandemic as it unfolds and continues to unfold. But I'm reminded always that I can never do this alone. I'm very proud and grateful for the people that sit alongside me and behind me here. I often nickname them the Ministry of Talent, because there is such a diverse range of opinion, experience and talent here that will help drive this agenda. I was fortunate this week also to meet members of staff across this great organisation, from the ground floor up to the third floor, all working hard for the people of this town. Many of them great ideas on how we can take things forward for the better, and I didn't meet one member of staff who just turned up for work. Everybody I spoke to really cared deeply about what they did and why they did it. If you're indulged me, please, Chair.
Just a little while longer.
Thank you very much. It'll be engagement with our local community, our faith, our voluntary, our local businesses, and where we can find common ground, the opposition over here. And if we all drive forward, if we all push in the same direction, and we all work together, we can deliver on those clear pledges. In common endeavour, as it says up there, we will change, we will bring about the change that this town so desperately needs. And I'm very proud and honoured to be at the head of this organisation and be spearheading that change and delivering that programme. Thank you very much, Chair.
Item 10, references from Cabinet and Committee. We have the annual Treasury Management Report. Who is proposing that?
Proposed, Chair.
Who is seconding it? Thank you. Councillor Leppard. This is for approval. Is it approved? Agreed? Thank you. Item 11 is reports from officers, terms of reference for the electoral review working group. Can I close that? What's about sign?
Forgive me, Chair, I will propose the TROs for the electoral review.
And seconded? Thank you. I understand the Labour had their two members fixed in. Have the Conservatives got their three? Or will that be at a later time?
Chair, just to say that our nominations will be announced in due course in line with other appointments by the new leader.
Thank you very much. Item 12, minutes of Cabinet Committee meetings. These are for noting. Agreed? Item 13, matters of urgent business. I've received none. So the meeting's closed at 9:27, and there